Hello and welcome to another tutorial video, writing exercise 14, writing character thoughts. Character thoughts are monologues, internal dialogue, and contemplations of characters. These can be a clever way to distinguish characters and dive deeper into their emotions, personalities, and backgrounds for the readers. However, they can be confusing if not properly used within story narratives. So how can writers avoid this problem when writing character thoughts? I have here a couple key points that can be helpful for writing character thoughts. The first is to use action beats before or after thoughts to distinguish them between characters. This can allow you to let readers know what thoughts belong to who within different types of scenes. The next key point is to use italics to make thoughts significant and blend into the narrative. I think it's better to have thoughts be italicized like this and just blend into the narrative than the next key point, which talks about don't use thought as a dialogue tag. It's an internal past tense action. In my opinion, I don't really think writers should use thought as a dialogue tag, as well as words like smiled, grinned, thought, all those types of different verbs that are more like body language. I don't really think writers should use as dialogue tags, but that's just my opinion. Because these are more like actions, they're not actual verbal things that are being said. So that's pretty much the next key point. Don't use thought as a dialogue tag. The next one after that one is to use the 5 senses to evoke mental flashbacks and flash forwards. This can be a very good way to be able to write about characters' thoughts. Maybe they're thinking of like past memories within the story. It can be a good way to be able to include that within your scenes. For example, maybe a character is thinking of a nostalgic memory from their childhood or something, or like any future possibilities for like flash forwards that they have in mind for their life or something. But you can use the 5 senses, maybe like a smell that they have encountered, or something that they see, or a sound that they hear, or something can just cause their minds to be stimulated, whereas they're thinking of these past memories or any future possibilities. And the last key point is to use dream sequences, but sparingly. It's sparingly here because dream sequences, they can be overdone if you use them too much, especially for like chapter openings. So I don't really advise that one use them too much, but just in a significant way. For example, maybe there's something that happened in a character's life that they're hunted by, that they end up dreaming about, for example, is when you can use dream sequences. Here I just have a writing example that I just pulled in from book 1 of my highly appraised series, Precious Lord Take My Hand, about my character Isaiah Johnson. And as you can see, I have some lines in highlighter here, which are actual thoughts that he has within the narrative. I'm just going to read through this passage just to show how thoughts can just blend into the narrative rather than having them stick out with a dialogue tag. For example, Isaiah thought, for example. Instead of putting Isaiah thought, just blending the thought into the narrative instead with action beats before and after. I'm just going to read through this passage real quick just to show how one can do that. 62-year-old Isaiah Darius Johnson stared in his Bible at the yellow, highlighted 14th verse in the book of Job and sipped his third cup of hot coffee. Man born of a woman is a few days and full of trouble. He smacked his lips. Amen to that. With everything he was faced with each day, this Bible verse struck him like a lightning bolt, thundering in the deep thoughts of his mind. Lately it was the verse that spoke to his spirit every time he awoke in the morning, and like now, the verse that sometimes kept him up at night. Was God telling him something? Being a pastor husband, father, and teacher, performing his daily life had become like a juggling act in the circus. There was always something he had to handle, a phone call to make, or a problem to resolve with the church, his family, or a parent or student in school. He sighed at the dregs left in his favorite blue mug and placed it down on the square table in the dimly lit kitchen. Many years ago he had been given the baton of leadership as a young, full-bodied man of 28 from Bishop Haywood Campbell, who died from lung cancer. Since then, he's been racing against the passage of time to save souls and serve his community. He had a lot of weight on his shoulders, and he tried to withhold a good reputation in honor of his predecessor, but inkling within him warned he lacked confidence in his pastoring abilities. Witnessing the downfalls of his daughters was enough to shrink his ego. Why did their lives have to get so messed up? They were good and talented little girls, but good-for-nothing parasite men plagued and ruined their lives. Isaiah raised his silver-rimmed eyeglasses up his wrinkled forehead and rubbed his hands down his taffy-brown face. He peered at the neon-green stove clock in the darkness, as he had 10 minutes earlier. 11:27 p.m. An early bird at heart, it was way past his bedtime, but one thought led to another as he sat alone at the table, wondering to God why things had to be as they were. The house was quieter without his wife Cordelia and their 3 daughters, nothing but the sound of his breath and the chirps of summer crickets filling the silence. What happened to my family? Had I been an absent father? Isaiah frowned and folded his hands under his chin. He knew there were times he could have let one of his fellow brethren or ministers do a task that he had liked to stay the center of attention. Along with everything else he did, it made him feel important and reassured him he was finally the responsible man his mother longed for him to be. Like so many Christians, Isaiah had a bad past. Although a religious old man, he wasn't always one with a halo over his head. Back in the 50s and 60s, he was raised in a matriarchal household and had a mischievous behavior that became second nature to him. His mama, aunts, and grandma prayed fervently for him to mature and change his ways. When he grew up, he enlisted in the United States Army as a form of escaping the holy sanctified women to fight in the Vietnam War. Keeping company with his comrades exposed him to worse trouble with smoking pot, gambling, and drinking, and whether family or friends, he refused to listen to anyone talk to him about God or church. But that's pretty much it for this passage of Isaiah from Book 1 in my Hallelujah Praise series. Just an example of how you can blend your thoughts, character thoughts, into your narrative summary instead of having them stand out from a dialogue tag. But that's pretty much it for this video. I hope it was helpful, and until next time, happy writing.